Thank you, and thank you, Lascan Corla, for facilitating me. Taoiseach, focus rightly has been on families struggling with rising energy costs, which is causing serious financial hardship for them. But these costs are also putting huge financial pressure on many businesses in terms of operational costs, transport costs, and also wage pressures. So my question is, what active and immediate actions are going to be taken by government to ease the energy cost pressure facing business?
Thanks very much, Deputy, for the question. The invasion of Ukraine has exacerbated the inflationary pressures that Ireland and other economies were already experiencing in the wake of the supply chain disruptions brought about as a result of the pandemic. The war and the necessary introduction of sanctions against Russia is also disrupting supply chains and leading to large rises in international prices for energy, food and other commodities. The government recognises the additional challenge these rising prices are bringing for households and businesses, as many are still trying to recover from the effects of COVID-19. Ireland imports over 70% of the energy we use, and the government cannot fully insulate individuals and businesses from developments in international energy markets that are outside of our control. However, the government has already implemented several measures to help ease the impact on enterprises and households of energy price rises. These include a temporary reduction in excise duties charged by 20 cents per litre of petrol and 15 cents per litre of diesel, and this has had a significant benefit for business as well as householders, as well as a 2-cent reduction in excise duty charged on marked gas oil or green diesel. The estimated cost of this is about 320 million between households, businesses and farmers. For hauliers, a temporary grant scheme will provide a payment of €100 per week to help mitigate the rising price of fuel. This scheme is operating for a period of 8 weeks and is valued at €18 million. There's also been a temporary targeted intervention package for the tillage sector to the value of €12.2 million in response to the impact on agri-food. My department is working with the Department of Enterprise, Climate and Communications in leading consultations with industry to learn about the specific impacts of higher costs on Irish business and to hear their concerns and perspectives on the appropriate and most effective tools for policy action. This follows on from recent meeting of the Enterprise Forum, which I convened to hear firsthand how the war in Ukraine is affecting businesses in Ireland. The three main issues raised at that meeting were the difficulties in supply chains in Europe and around the world, recent increases in the cost of raw materials, and foodstuffs and energy security and prices.
Taoiseach, you will recall we had a very detailed conversation and debates in relation to these specific issues back in 2017 and 2018. And at the time I pointed out that Ireland's energy costs have a far higher impact on inflation than anywhere else in the EU. And this is partly as a result of the subsidy in the cost of green electricity, grid connections and backup supplies that are being provided to existing and already planned speculative data centres with no substantial employment dividend here in Ireland. Now, as you know, the government took a decision in 2018 to stop this practice of subsidising the speculative developers and the electricity going into data centres. So when is that going to be implemented by government?
Thanks very much, Deputy. I think it's true that the energy costs in Ireland have a higher impact on business. That's partially related to the fact of our geography, that we're on the edge of Europe, that we're an island, that things have to be brought here by boats and by planes and then put on trucks and trains and transported further, and also in part due to the way our population is distributed. In relation to data centres, that the responsibility for that falls to Minister Ryan. My understanding, and I could be wrong, is that the decision on that has been implemented. There was a decision from the Commission on the Regulation of Utilities a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago anyway, that heavily restricted the connection of new data centres, particularly in the Dublin area, but in all parts of the country as well. But I might be 100% fully up to date on that. I'm not sure that in itself will have a significant impact on energy prices, quite frankly. Data centres use up about 10% of our electricity. You would think from some of the commentary it was more, but it was increasing so fast that we thought it was increasing too fast, and that's why those restrictions came in.
Deputy. Taoiseach, the responsibility lies with your department. Your department was the one that actually published the report back in 2018, and the reality is that we are subsidising electricity, which will make up 50% of all demand by 2030. Taoiseach, can I ask you in relation to the PSO levy? The government announced earlier this week with some fanfare that next October the PSO levy will be reduced to zero, or actually people will actually get a rebate on it. Now, the government has given the impression that this is something new and positive. In fact, it's not. That's the rules set out under the PSO levy, because it's set last summer in relation to projected electricity costs over the next 12 months. Can I ask you, Taoiseach, rather than having this sleight of hand in relation to some new innovative announcement, will you pause the PSO levy today and stop the additional charges being accrued until people start getting a rebate next September and October?
Thanks, Deputy. My understanding as to how the PSO levy works is that it was there to subsidise renewables and also energy produced by peat. And given that the price of producing energy has now gone so high, that's no longer necessary anymore. And that's why it's going to be gotten rid of and may even turn negative, apparently, towards the end of the year. I don't know how the timing of that works, and I'd have to talk to Minister Ryan about that. In relation to the data centre report, you're absolutely correct. I stand corrected on that. We are doing a review on the role of data centres in enterprise policy. That will be done by the end of this quarter. We've engaged with EirGrid, ESB, CRU and the data centre sector, as well as IDA and Enterprise Ireland. There was a working group meeting on this on the 21st of March, and that produced a draft template guide for the revised policy and set out a work programme that will take the group to draft the final revised policy statement.